Great. Okay. Well, good evening and welcome to part one of our generational trauma discussion series. As Black people, generational trauma is something a good majority of us have experienced. And through this series, we want to venture into what it looks like, how it impacts us, and ways that we can collectively heal. My name is Jerea Brad. I am a product manager here at Push Black. And today we'll be talking about one of the most common symptoms of generational trauma, which is anxiety. And joining me are our amazing guests, national award-winning psychologist, professor, author, and leading expert on anxiety disorders among African Americans, Dr. Angela Neal Barnett, and licensed marriage and family therapist and founder of the Senior Practice, Ibinye Osibodu Onyali. Thank you all so much. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
We appreciate you being with us on this Thursday evening. Thank you, Dr. Angela, for being with us.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We're having some technical difficulties over on my end, but I am so glad to be here. And it just, even with the technical difficulties, it certainly gives us real live examples of how anxiety can enter in just when we least expect it.
Yes, agreed. Agreed. And thank you. We appreciate you being here. We understand the tech issues. I think all of us, after spending the past year and a half in the pandemic, I know it's like second nature to me for Zoom troubleshooting and rolling with the punches and making things work. So we appreciate you being with us even through that. And I hope we didn't lose her. I think we might just be.
We did.
In and out. Okay, we'll probably get her back, but I think we can go ahead and get started. Oh, there we go. Dr. Angela, can you hear us okay?
I am here. And again, what I will say is I'm going to model grace under pressure during this time together.
No worries. Just let us know if anything comes up. You can chat with us, but we can see you okay. As long as you can hear us, I think we can hop in.
I can hear you and I can see you and all is well.
Awesome. Okay, well, I actually have to say thank you, Dr. Angela, because you helped us with the title for this discussion. When we were talking initially, we were talking about this trauma series and what we wanted to get across to our subscribers. And I brought up how I didn't even know what anxiety was until about 4 years ago. And we kind of got into this great conversation about how anxiety is often not talked about and it's passed down generationally unknowingly. And I would love if you can start off with just telling us what exactly is anxiety and some of the ways we experience it as Black people.
Sure. Anxiety is this perception of a threat. We don't know what's going to happen or when it's going to happen. We just know something is going to happen. And so what we then do, we are in the state of highest alert, or what psychologists call hypervigilance. So we're always waiting for the shoe to drop. So when we are anxious, the most common forms of anxiety are panic attacks. And panic attacks occur in 3 ways. So all of a sudden, out of the blue, for no reason at all, we just get really, really anxious. And what happens then is we might go from hot to cold to hot. Our heart might start racing. We feel our legs might start tingling. Our arms feel numb. We feel we are going crazy. We feel we are going to die. And that is an out of the blue, unexpected panic attack. The second type of panic attack occurs in the face of something we fear. So we're afraid of cats or we're afraid of dogs, and we see the cat and we start to panic. We have those same type of symptoms. And then even when we think we're going to see a cat, we have those same symptoms. And the third type of panic attack is something called isolated sleep paralysis or witch riding. And if you grew up in the South or grew up with someone who grew up in the South, then you're probably familiar with witch riding. And what happens in witch riding is just as you're falling asleep or just as you're waking up, you feel as if you can't move. And then you start to see things and you start to panic. And most people have had that experience, but for Black Americans, it happens over and over again.
Yeah, thank you. As soon as you said the perception of a threat, that just like rang off so many bells for myself. And it also reminded me of a phrase I actually seen on a Viney's site that said, you have no idea how you got this bad or how things got this bad. And it reminds me of how in my family, we would say, I try not to say it anymore, but we had the phrase, it's always something.
Mm.
And I didn't realize until I was able to identify anxiety, like, okay, we would say that whether it be a financial issue, a loss in the family, any type of inconvenience that came up, we would always say like, it's always something. And I didn't realize that that's the phrase that we were using in a way to actually identify our anxiety. And I feel like that's also what you just put color to with the phrase, the perception of a threat. I don't think that we knew that, we were living under a threat as Black people, whether it be financial issues, which is also a symptom of generational trauma. So I would love if you can speak more to some of the ways we see anxiety show up in our families and how we pass it down.
I see a lot of people being in survival mode. It's almost like we're always holding our breath because we're waiting for something bad to happen. And we just know it. Like in our family, we just have bad luck and bad things always happen to us. And it's the idea of sometimes we over plan because something could go wrong. So there's a plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Always thinking about the future and having a hard time being present, focused, because you just know something bad is going to happen. Always watching your back because something or someone is going to be out to get me. Or when you grow up in an environment where, let's say, mom or grandma, whoever it is that raised you, was just always watching their back, always asking you to be careful, because again, it's that perceived threat. Something bad is going to happen, so you better stay ready because something bad will happen to us. And so a lot of times it feels very functional because planning is not a bad thing, or watching your back is not necessarily a bad thing. Staying ready is not necessarily a bad thing. But then when you see that you can't even just breathe, you're just always holding your breath because in your head, you know something bad is about to happen. And then when you're over planning things, you pass that down to your kids because you're like, did you get this? Did you get that? Did you watch this? Did you say this? It's like this constant go, 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 go. And people like that will often be looked at as like overachievers. You're such an overachiever. Teachers love kids like that. Like she has everything good going for her, but really it's like, oh, I'm doing all of these things to prevent bad things from happening. And so even through the words that we say, saying like you mentioned, it's always something. That is how we pass down anxiety, because we are almost pre-programming our kids to assume that the world is this bad, scary, dangerous place. And now I'm not saying that the world does not have bad and scary things within it, but in reality, bad things are not always happening 24/7.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like anxiety also could, in my experience and hearing you speak, be almost what we think is a form of control.
Yeah.
Like we need to overdo these things in hopes of something bad not happening. So we think that we're preventing it when in essence, we're kind of driving ourselves a little bit crazy in the moment because of how much we're trying to prevent that. And I think that for a lot of Black people, that's something that we probably don't even realize. And I would like to know, we were talking about this even with the tech issues and just this discussion in general. It seems like there might be good and bad anxiety. Speaking for myself, I had anxiety before joining this live because I really wanted to go well and I wanted to be a good resource for our subscribers and just everyone who's viewing it. But now that I know what anxiety is, I can kind of pinpoint like, okay, that underlying feeling I feel, it's anxiety, but it's not the worst kind that's making me obsessed. That, it's anxiety because of I want a good outcome. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Is there a such thing as good anxiety? Or what are your thoughts on how we kind of navigate it?
Oh yeah, you go ahead.
There is good anxiety. I mean, some anxiety is good for us, and some of that is the anticipation before we're getting ready to do something, or something that says if I'm out at 2:30 at night, I need to watch. I need to be careful about where I'm walking, or I need to call the Uber or the Lyft. So there is good anxiety. What happens, how anxiety goes from good to bad is when it starts to interfere with our life, when it stops us from doing the things that we truly want to do. Then we are really into bad anxiety. And I want to say a little bit, and I'm going to move. I'm going to move because we have all these technical difficulties this evening. But I also want to say a little bit about what you said about trying to control it. And you have plans A, B, C, D, F, and all of that. And that's when our anxiety can actually start to move into obsessive compulsive type of behavior. And we may or may not have obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I want to give you a second to answer too if you have anything to add.
Right. Just like Dr. Angela was saying, when you have a small level of anxiety, sometimes it pushes you to ensure that, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. When you're about to perform, you want to make sure that I remember all the steps, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? But when the anxiety becomes so big that it prevents you from actually accomplishing tasks, or it is giving you just a sense of discomfort, then that's typically a warning sign that anxiety has moved from good to bad. But a little bit of anxiety just kind of keeps us on our toes and keeps us vigilant and actually safe.
Right. And I've researched how anxiety shows up in our bodies. So are there some I guess triggering factors we can know that like, okay, this isn't right. That shouldn't be feeling like, how does it show up, or how can it rather?
For some people, it's the racing thoughts. They say they lay down on their beds at night and your brain just cannot shut off. Some people will actually experience hot flashes or chills. Like all of a sudden, it just feels like somebody's just pouring something hot on you, and you're looking around and everybody feels good. Or for some people, it's heart palpitations. They feel like there's something in their chest that's just really, really tight and they can't let go. Some people will clench their jaws. And a lot of times we don't even know that we're doing this. But I often tell people, like, make sure your tongue is not stuck to the roof of your mouth. Like, make sure you're wiggling your jaw a little bit. So that happens. Some people, they experience a lot of like crying spells for no reason at all, at least in their mind, because they can't really pinpoint the reason. They just burst out crying. And for some people, anxiety looks like avoidance. They're running away from social situations. They're running away from their work. It's just that feeling of, I cannot do it. And some people, it feels like butterflies in the tummy, or they get an upset stomach. So usually the first sign is to really sit with your body and ask yourself, how am I feeling? Or just a general pain in the neck or in the shoulders. Lots of people will hold tension in the upper back or in the neck or in the shoulders. And then they realize, oh my goodness, something is going on. And they don't even know that it's anxiety.
Thank you. That's helpful. I feel like I should be taking notes. I'm gonna have to. Dr. Angela, do we have you there? I want to give you a second if you have anything to add, especially in regards to panic disorders. I think we might have lost it for a second. That's fine. We can keep it going. We got you.
I am here, and again, let me apologize to the audience. I've been locked out of my office, and the lock shop is closed. So I apologize for that, but I am here and I am present, and I'm here to talk about what anxiety is and how we can reclaim your life. So having said that, having said that, uh, if you want to go ahead and ask me the question again.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you had anything to add about the physical symptoms of anxiety and how it shows up in our bodies.
Yes, I think it's so important to understand what those reactions. I mean, those reactions are symptoms of panic, and the toll that takes on our body. You know, we talk a lot about something called the stress axis. And that what happens in our body is that there's this stress hormone called cortisol. And when we are continually when we are continually stressed and anxious, our cortisol goes up, but it can't stay high. I mean, it's like a car, and if you run it at 100 miles an hour, eventually you're going to run out of gas. You're going to burn out the engine. And so what happens with anxiety is that our cortisol is burned out. And that places us at even higher risk for more anxiety. So anxiety burns out this protective hormone that we have. So we have those physical symptoms, and then we have what's actually going on internally in the systems in our bodies.
Thank you. Thank you both. So now that we kind of have that foundation of what it is and what it feels like, I really want to lean into that secret part of the discussion. We shared a story that highlights some of the myths that Black people have about, mental health in general, which are things like, they're only a concern, mental health is only a concern for white people, or it's a sign of weakness, and people with anxiety or mental health issues just need to go to church. So I would love to hear both of you, if you can speak more to some of the ways we might subconsciously be covering up or ignoring anxiety within ourselves and our families.
In some families, remember, when you're in survival mode, your main goal is just to survive and stay alive. That's it. Like, we just need to pay these bills, survive, and live to see another day. Like, that's it, right? And that is something that we often will pass down the generational line. So then when you struggle with anxiety, there might be that temptation to be like, I don't have time for this. Like, I really don't have time for anxiety. I'm just going to put it on the sideline. It is important to note that anxiety is not a sign of weakness. I feel like I can't say this enough. It is not a sign of weakness. It is not a sign that you're not Black. It is not a sign that you're not a good Christian. It's not a sign that you're weak. It's not a sign that you're a bad person. And it is important to seek support. Now, support does not always have to be in the form of therapy. Even as a therapist myself, some people just don't want to go to therapy. Maybe support is the church. However, though, I do have to say that most pastors and ministers and deacons are not trained to deal with mental health issues, right? Anxiety is not necessarily something that can be prayed away. So if you are going to the church for support, that's all great, but it is also important to seek some type of professional support to help you. Taking time for yourself, if you can, is also so important, to just sit and reflect. Like, how was my day? How am I feeling today? What are the relationships in my life? Who poured into me today that I can reach to and talk to and have that sense of, of oneness with? And when you're reaching out isn't just, I'm good, because a lot of times we'll say that, how are you doing? I'm just good. I'm good. I feel like we have this protective covering a lot of times as Black people. Like, I'm good. Everything's good. I'm cool.
Yeah.
But do you have that one person in your life that you can go to and be honest with and say, I'm struggling, or look, I'm having these racing thoughts, or I just can't shut down my thoughts, or I'm having these incidents of panic? Someone that you can be open to, because there's something to be said about when you share your life with somebody else and they say, oh my goodness, me too, I'm feeling this too. we've all experienced anxiety at some point or other. You know, not everybody has experienced debilitating anxiety that feels like it's paralyzing and choking you, but reaching out and just saying to someone, I am struggling and I don't know what this thing is, because sometimes it just feels good to be seen.
Yeah.
I would say that anxious Black Americans are stellar secret keepers. And they have, I mean, the things that they do to keep family and friends from knowing that they are anxious. So I had an aunt who never went anywhere, but none of us ever realized it because she was so good at getting other people to run to the store for her, or to pick up this for her, or to pick up that for her, that, you know, by the time anybody realized that something might not be right, she had been doing this for 10 years. And so the term for that is that she was agoraphobic. And in the old days, we used to say that agoraphobia was a fear of open spaces. But agoraphobia is really a fear of having a panic attack and not being able to get out or get help. The other people who are great at keeping secrets are Black Americans who are socially anxious. And social anxiety is basically, what must other people think? So if we think about our friends, we all may have a friend who, you know, you invite them to go someplace and they're like, yeah, we'll be there, and all that. And then the day comes when you're all supposed to get together and that friend doesn't show up. And you begin to realize that it's a pattern. Or adolescents who always miss a test. You know, it's test day, and all of a sudden they're sick. They're not sick, but they're anxious. So secret keeping among Black anxious Americans is, I mean, they could be spies because they're so good at keeping secrets.
Yeah, I feel called out, Dr. Angela, because I have a few moments where I can realize, like, okay, yeah, I didn't just want to not go there. Like, that was my social anxiety, you know, telling me, oh, just skip that, rather than, you know, confronting it and actually leaning into that discomfort and maybe evaluating, like, why am I uncomfortable with this? Why is this making me feel this way? Because if I did, I probably would have gone anyway, you know, and just actually, or even digested maybe a deeper reason as to why I was feeling the anxiety about that. So that's so helpful. And I mean, to that point, do you have any recommendations for how we can help those in our family who suffer with anxiety, especially some that might not confront it as directly?
Sure. I think the very first thing is to call it what it is. You don't have, the family member doesn't have bad nerves. They're not down to their last good nerve. They're not about to lose their mind up in here. They are anxious. And calling it what it is this powerful secret breaker. But there's a name for this? I did not know that. And then after we call it what it is, explaining how it impacts our lives. So explaining what is a panic attack, what is social anxiety, what is OCD, explaining those types of things. And then the third thing is making it very clear that having an anxiety difficulty or an anxiety disorder does not make you crazy, okay? It does not, it takes, from a psychological perspective, it takes a lot to be labeled or to get the diagnosis of crazy. And being anxious is not in that category. You are not crazy. You are simply anxious. And understanding that helps you understand that anxiety is treatable and you can reclaim your life.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry I had to mute. My dog decides he wants to eat right now. But Vinay, I would love to give you a second to answer that too. Any ways we can help those in our families with who suffer from anxiety and may not know it?
Sometimes it's important to normalize anxiety. What I mean by that is to help people understand, like, they're not the only ones who are struggling. And if you have struggled with anxiety, if you're comfortable, because I know, again, with the secret keeping, we don't like to tell people that we struggle, you know, everybody wants to be Superwoman, but to be able to share your story and say, yeah, I might not understand exactly what you're going through, but here's my story of anxiety. Here's the time when I used to struggle, and here's what I did to overcome the struggle. And being very mindful of our language, because sometimes when we have that one aunt in our family who stays home all the time, or that one aunt who has panic attacks, we like give them like these funny names that are really not funny at all. And they become the crazy aunt, like, you know how she is. And all of that languaging just really needs to stop. And even changing the way we speak about mental health in our households. Because let's be honest, if you watch your mother badmouth Aunt Betty about whatever she's going through, or Aunt Betty with the bad nerves, if your own child is struggling, you're not going to go to your mother for help because you already know she badmouths everybody. So we need to also be mindful of the way we speak about people, whether we speak about celebrities, people on TV, and all. Like, let's stop with the crazy, telling people that they are crazy, because nobody wants to be crazy. If I thought I was crazy, I would not seek help, because I don't want my family or anyone to think that I'm crazy. But like Dr. Angela was saying, there is help out there. You don't have to struggle for the rest of your life. There are treatments for this, and it's okay. It's okay to seek help.
Thank you. I want to reiterate, right when you said that, someone in the comments said how not calling people weak, crazy, weird, and rude are, you know, that's like the first step on top of normalizing it and really letting people know that it's okay. It's something we all experience, whether we know how to identify it or not. And I think that that's something that we really should drive home for people around us so that we know that. And I want to take a step back. We kind of talked about how we can help those around us, but what are ways we can, as individuals, confront our anxiety and actually try to work through it? I know we talked a little bit about reflecting. Someone else said that in the comments too, but are there any other ways we can confront our anxieties for ourselves?
Well, I want to go back to what was in the comments as well. The word weak, because to be weak and black is an oxymoron, basically. And so you are not weak if you are anxious. You are just anxious, and that's all it is. The idea of how, you say you confront your anxiety, and that's actually what you do. That's the best treatment for anxiety. Again, psychologists like big words, so the psychological word is exposure therapy. And basically in exposure therapy, you confront what it is that is creating the anxiety for you. So for someone who has panic attacks, what we actually do is we increase the intensity of the panic attacks. And that's very easy to do because things that contribute to panic are things that we really like caffeine, and anything that has caffeine in it. So coffee, cola, chocolate, but really, really exposing ourselves to the things that we are afraid of is what is key in the treatment of anxiety. And then what keeps us anxious is our mind. So while we are confronting the thing, or while we are exposing ourselves to the thing that makes us anxious, the other thing that we're doing is we're paying attention to what the thoughts that are going on in our mind, and that changing those thoughts. And part of what we do in therapy is teach you how to, first of all, recognize what you are thinking, and then how to change that so that you are pushing out those negative, anxious thoughts and replacing them with positive thoughts. And what we do is something called musical cognitive restructuring, because you teach people to do this in therapy, and then they're out in the real world and they can't do it. And so what we teach people to do is to write their own song, build an anthem that they use when they are in those situations and when they recognize the thinking, to do what I said before, push them out and replace them. And everybody can sing.
I love that. Beanie, do you have anything to add on how we can confront and overcome our anxieties?
Yes, there is something that I do called brain spotting. And brain spotting is not a form of talk therapy. I actually have it here. I have a pointer. And the idea is where you look affects how you feel. And most of us really, and I'm going to get very technical here, most of us are really in the prefrontal cortex. That's the thinking brain. And we spend so much time thinking and analyzing, and we don't spend a lot of time in the subcortical brain. Those are the deeper layers of the brain where your emotions and your feelings happen, right? So when you go through trauma, a lot of times those emotions will get locked in that emotional brain. And through the process of brain spotting, by using your eye gaze, your body and your brain is supposed to be able to heal itself, and we gently unlock those feelings, but while your body is calming you at the same time. So that is a great way of treating anxiety and trauma, because trauma and anxiety will often go hand in hand. If you've struggled with trauma, chances are you feel anxious as well. And it's a gentle way. And I love it for Black folk, because a lot of Black folks don't really want to tell me their business. And I'm like, that's fine. You can still do therapy without telling me your business, and you can still get your healing at the same time. So that's one of the methods that I use.
Yeah. Thank you. And I guess one final thing I would want to know is, are there any that you've identified throughout your work and just in general, specific events, whether it's interpersonally or externally, that kind of trigger anxieties for Black people in particular?
The police.
Yeah.
You know, because we have a long history, you know, I don't even have to talk about it. And it could be even in your environment. Maybe you grew up in a place that wasn't safe, and anytime you go down the street, something bad happens, and then that triggers anxiety for you. Or maybe you've heard stories about something or someone, and so anytime you're in the presence of that person, you know, that triggers, you know, those events. Or even it could be something positive. It could be the holidays, because there are just too many people around you, and so you don't feel safe. It could be an elevator. Pretty much anything can be a trigger for anyone, because what the brain is doing is it's looking at that thing and it's saying, oh, something bad and dangerous is going on with that situation. The holidays are a big trigger, especially if you've lost, you know, loved ones, or maybe you are in a family dynamic that, you know, isn't so supportive. And so you're like, oh my gosh, I have to go to Aunt Betty's house, and I know that every time we go there, somebody's going to throw a punch or something's going to happen. So that can trigger anxiety. Any type of bad or negative experience could trigger anxiety for us.
And I would say specifically for Black Americans, racism. On its best days, racism is a stressor. And for the last 2 years, racism has been trauma. And so we experience systemic racism in our workplaces, in our schools, and all of these videos that have gone viral, Jacob Blake, George Floyd, Tatiana Jefferson, the list goes on and on and on. And for us as Black Americans, we are a family. And again, here's a nice big psychological word, collectivism. so that when
Yeah.
something happens to one of us, it happens to all of us. So the people that I just named, when we see those videos, what we know that could have been our brother, our husband, our sister, that could have been us. So we cannot underplay the role of systemic racism in the development of anxiety. And I thought you mentioned that you're going to UC Berkeley. Did I hear that correctly?
Loma Linda University. Oh, you?
Yeah, yeah, okay. But and also things like being the only one in a classroom, or
Yeah.
being the only one at work.
Yeah.
Those type of things that are pretty common to Black Americans can trigger anxiety and trauma. So, and I want to be clear, it is not being Black that places you at high risk for anxiety. It is being Black in America that places you at high risk, because at the core is systemic racism for us.
Yes, I just brought it home, but I didn't go to UC Berkeley, but I went to Howard University, and my learning of anxiety and being able to actually look at it didn't come until I was in a space with more people who looked like me. So I can really be like, okay, these things that I felt before, I don't necessarily feel right now. And even with working here at Push Black, where I work in a predominantly Black environment, and I am able to come into my work and not feel the things I felt with prior employers. So it's really such a, it shows you that like it's systemic and it's external. And I don't think a lot of us realize how much we do, but we don't at the same time, how much it impacts us. Like,
Yes.
I love that you use collectivism too, because that's kind of what we're trying to do through this series, is collectively heal and actually, talk about it with each other so that we can feel that sense of unity. Like, okay, this is not just a me thing. It's not weird. I'm not weak. I'm not broken even. Like, this is really what we all live through. And I adore that. And I really hope that that's coming across through this conversation for our followers too. So as we close out, well, I want to take a space before we close it up and let you both, if you have anything to add to this discussion or just in general.
One thing I would like to say is, we really need to sit and just give ourselves a pat on the back, because we are living in a society that doesn't always love us back, that doesn't always treat us well, that doesn't always see us for who we are. And somehow we have been able to function together as a unit, because like Dr. Angela was saying, we're a collective unit. So first of all, give yourself, whenever you have that thought of I'm weak or I'm crazy, give yourself a pat on the back that you are still alive and surviving somehow. And you owe yourself the gift of healing. You owe yourself that gift to be able to reach out and seek help. And just know that there are many, many people like you. I know we always say Black, because people say that to me all the time. Black people don't do therapy. Who said? Who said Black people don't get anxious? That's not true. Black brains can struggle like any other brain, but Black brains can heal just like any other brain. So remember that, is that you are not broken and you can heal, and you owe it to yourself, because if you could do so much with all the struggles that you've been through, imagine how much more you can do when you are focusing on your healing and your growth. So we are amazing as a collective. We really are.
Yeah, I love that.
I would say that whether or not we are church folks or not, that spirituality is part of the Black identity. And so it is so, having said that, it is so important that we remember that there is no sin and no shame in asking for help. And that the sin and the shame comes when we try to hide, when we try to keep our anxiety a secret, because it festers and it grows worse. And again, I really want to stress this, that anxiety is treatable, and that every Black person in this country can reclaim their life.
Thank you both so much. This was extremely fulfilling for myself, and I really appreciate being able to take the time. I could sit here all day, honestly, and just talk about these things. It's been a journey, and I'm really grateful for Push Black to be able to, prioritize healing just as much. This is a part of educating Black people, and it's great that we're able to bring each other together in a space like this. And before we go, I definitely want to take a second and let you both, I know, Dr. Angela, you have an amazing book about anxiety, and Xenia, you also share some great content on your Instagram for the Xenia practice. So I want to give you both a chance to talk about any resources of your own or externally that folks can go to learn more about anxiety or just your work in general.
So if you want to learn about Black anxiety, the title of the book is Soothe Your Nerves, The Black Woman's Guide to Understanding and Overcoming Anxiety, Panic, and Fear. If you are looking for a culturally competent therapist or a Black therapist to help you overcome your anxiety, the Anxiety and Depression Association of America is a great place to start. And that their website is adaa.org. And I just want to remind people that the very first therapist you might meet may not be the right therapist for you. And it is okay. It's okay if it's not the right therapist. It's not you, it's the particular therapist. And so don't become discouraged. Keep looking till you find the right therapist.
Absolutely. And you can find me at thexeniapractice.com. I have a blog about anxiety, insomnia, and relationships, including family relationships, because I know family relationships sometimes can be tricky and sometimes they trigger anxiety as well. You can also find me on Instagram at the Xenia Practice. And I love to share all types of things about anxiety and insomnia because they often will go hand in hand. And I also want to do a little plug for Therapy for Black Girls. If you are a Black woman looking for a therapist, that is a great resource for you. And I would say it's okay to call the therapist, get to know them a little bit before you jump in. And even after the first session, if you don't like them, that is okay. You don't owe them anything. Keep searching until you find the perfect fit for you.
Yes, I found my therapist on Therapy for Black Girls, and I'm on therapist number 2 as well, because my first did not work out for me. So I appreciate reiterating that, because that definitely was a moment for me where I'm like, oh, okay, it might be time for a new one. And it's a weird moment because you feel it working, but then you're like, oh, is it not working because I don't really like this person anymore? So thank you for lifting that up. And again, thank you both for joining. We will be, we're recapping those resources in the comments right now. And then we'll also be sharing to our social media more recaps from this conversation and resources and takeaways based on what we discussed today. So thank you both. And I appreciate it again. And I hope you both have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.